What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another installment in the Over or Under series. If you've been subscribed to the channel for a while, then you're probably pretty familiar with how this goes. It's a pretty simple concept. Basically, I just ask you guys to name a player and a point total, and I go through some of your guys' comments and try and predict if the player will go over or under the given total in the upcoming NHL season. I usually like to make a couple of these before each season starts, so if you enjoy this video and you want to see another one before the season begins next month, then be sure to leave the video a like. It's the best way to let me know that you enjoyed. And with that all being said, let's go ahead and start the episode off with the first comment from Nick, who says, Elias Pettersson, 82 points. 102-point version of PD is lethal, but last 1.5 years of PD has been a hard watch. If you've watched some of the recent videos on the channel, then you probably know my answer here. I'm taking the over. I think Pettersson is poised to have a big bounce back season. I really don't think there should be anybody in the entire NHL coming into this season with a bigger chip on their shoulder than Elias Pettersson. The rift in the Canucks locker room that clearly had a big impact on Pettersson's mediocre performance over the last year and a half is now a thing of the past. JT Miller is in New York and Rick Tocchet is in Philadelphia. The organization basically had to choose between Pettersson and Miller, and they chose Pettersson, and it's time for Pettersson to prove to the Vancouver Canucks that they made the right decision, and it's time for him to get back to being the kind of player that the Canucks gave a contract to that pays him $11.6 million per season. Moving on now to the next comment. This one comes from the Leafs fan, who says, Matthew Knies over or under 35 goals with Marner gone. We really need Knies to take a big step forward. I'm going to go with the over here as well. I mean, Matthew Knies was only 6 goals shy of this total this past season as a sophomore. He's really got a great nose for the net. I think he's the perfect kind of complementary player to play alongside a superstar like Austin Matthews, and that's why he's found so much success on a line with him this early in his career. And like you said, with Mitch Marner now gone, the Leafs are probably going to be looking for Matthew Knies to take a big step forward. He's somebody that they're likely going to rely on heavily this upcoming season. I imagine he's going to average nearly 20 minutes a night and be used in pretty much all situations. And when it comes to a player like Matthew Knies, who has such a well-rounded game, I think that's a situation he'll thrive in. So in my opinion, 35 goals is definitely well within reach for Knies this upcoming season. I'm taking the over. This next comment comes from Aline O'Brien, who says, Matthew Schaefer over or under 45 points. The Islanders' first overall selection from the 2025 NHL draft. And when it comes to rookies, especially rookies who are drafted and expected to make the jump to the NHL right away as an 18-year-old, I like to keep my expectations in check, so I'm gonna take the under here. And the Islanders are a team in a position as to where they can really just ease Matthew Schaefer into things, as they still have guys like Alexander Romanov and Adam Pelech on the left side. My guess is at least early on in the season, Schaefer probably plays relatively limited minutes at even strength, but is used as the quarterback for the top power play unit, replacing Noah Dobson, who's obviously now in Montreal. And for somebody who possesses the kind of skill that Matthew Schaefer does in that kind of role, he's definitely still going to put up numbers, but I'm just not so sure if he's going to be able to hit the 45-point mark just yet, so that's why I'm taking the under here. My expectation is more so in the range of 25 to 30 points. And this is all under the assumption that Matthew Schaefer actually plays in the NHL full-time this season, because I still think there's an outside chance that he doesn't. Moving on now to the next comment. This one comes from Hatcher Kane, who says, Mackie Samoskevich, 55 points. Samoskevich was very good for the Panthers this past season in a fourth-line role. He finished the season with 15 goals and 31 points. He was good defensively. And with Matthew Tkachuk likely to miss the first 2 to 3 months of the regular season, I think Samoskevich is the most likely candidate to jump up and replace him in the top 6 on the wing, as I can't see the Panthers wanting to mess with that third line of Lundell, Luosterainen, and Marchand that was so good for them in the postseason. So if that ends up being the case, then I think there is a very good chance we see Samoskevich surpass his totals from last season and set new career highs across the board, but I still think 55 points is a bit on the higher side, so I'm going to take the under, because ultimately Tkachuk is going to come back at some point, and when that happens, I think Samoskevich likely gets relegated back down to a bottom 6 role, which is a role that, again, he proved he can be very productive in this past season. He's somebody that I definitely think is going to be a big part of the Panthers' future. He's still just 22 years old, and I think at some point in his career, he's going to become a guy that can give you 50 to 60 points in a season, just not yet. So that's why I'm going with the under here. Moving on now to the next comment. This one comes from Hugh Barkhurst, who says, Noah Dobson, 60 points. I think I'm going to go with the under here. Dobson is a guy who's only ever surpassed 60 points in a season one time in his career. I feel like a more realistic expectation for Noah Dobson in his first season with the Canadiens is something in the 40-point range. I expect him to eat a ton of minutes for the Canadiens at even strength. But realistically, Lane Hutson is still going to be the guy running the show for the Montreal Canadiens on the power play, at least when it comes to the first unit, because with what he showed in his rookie season, I mean, why would you change it? He's a guy that I could honestly see surpassing his point totals from this past season, and being in that 70-point range, Lane Hutson really is that good offensively, and I really just can't see the Canadiens having two different defensemen scoring in the 60 to 70-point range. That would be pretty crazy, so that's why I'm going with the under on Noah Dobson. This next comment comes from Here's 44 More, who says Matias Maccelli over under 49.5 points. He had 57 points back in the 23-24 season, but had a down year last season since his role was cut basically to the fourth line. With Marner gone, Maccelli has a huge shot to get back to the player we know he can be with consistent top 6 to middle 6 minutes. I'm definitely hammering the over on this one. I made a video last month going over some of my breakout player picks for the upcoming season, and I had Maccelli in that video. I'm expecting a big year from him. Like you said, he's already had a season where he's finished with 57 points and proved that he can be very productive in a top 6 role. He is a very good playmaker, and when you look at the Maple Leafs depth chart, I think there's a very good chance that Maccelli ends up being the guy who starts the season on a line with Austin Matthews and Matthew Knies, who are obviously two very good goal scorers, and that really could end up being a match made in heaven for a guy with Maccelli's playstyle and skill set. So again, I'm hammering the over here. I feel like Maccelli probably clears the 50-point mark relatively easy this season. I wouldn't be surprised if he finishes in the 60 to 65-point range. Moving on now to the next comment. This one comes from Skywalker11, who says Landeskog 49.5 points. This is another one where I'm easily taking the over. Even though we haven't seen Landeskog play a regular season NHL game in over 3 years, we did get a glimpse of him back with the Avalanche in the first round of the 2025 playoffs against the Dallas Stars. Landeskog played in 5 games, and he really didn't look out of place whatsoever. He finished with 4 points in those 5 games, and again, these were playoff games in the first round against a very good Dallas Stars team. It's not like the Avalanche got to ease Landeskog back into things and play him in a handful of games to finish out the regular season. He returned to the lineup after a 3-year absence and was thrown right into the fire in what is the most physical and intense level of hockey that we see every year in the Stanley Cup playoffs. The dude's an absolute gamer, so there's really no doubt in my mind that if Landeskog stays relatively healthy this season, he's going to surpass the 50-point mark pretty easily. Moving on now to the next comment. This one comes from Dan, who says Spencer Knight over under 20 wins. First year as a full-time starter, contract year, young team on the rise, things are hopefully looking up. I am going to go with the under on this one. I do think Spencer Knight has a really bright future with the Blackhawks. He had some really good games for them to finish out the regular season after coming over from Florida as part of the Seth Jones trade, but he also had some not so good games. He's still only 24. Oftentimes, goalies take a lot longer to develop than forwards and defensemen. There's still going to be growing pains there. And let's be honest, even though the Blackhawks should at least be a little bit better this season, it's not like Spencer Knight is going to have the greatest team playing in front of him. I mean, the Blackhawks only won 25 total games this past season, so I definitely think it's pretty unlikely that Spencer Knight himself wins 20 games for the Blackhawks this upcoming season, even if they are a little bit better, because they still have Arvid Soderblom, who should get a decent chunk of starts as well. This next comment comes from Maxime Chapelles. Hopefully I said your name right. Jonathan Toews over under 35.5 points. As a Jets fan, I'm really excited to see how he does. This is a really tough one because we obviously haven't seen Jonathan Toews play a single game in the NHL over the last 2 seasons. At this point in his career, I really don't think he's going to be that legit number 2 center the Jets have been looking for, but with Adam Lowry out to start the season, Toews is definitely going to be getting consistent minutes as either the number 2 center or the number 3 center, and if he's able to stay healthy, I think in that role he should be able to be at least around a half point per game player, even though in his final few years we've seen him play in the NHL, his overall game took a pretty big step back. The offensive production still wasn't bad, so I'm going to be optimistic here about Jonathan Toews and his return to the NHL and take the over, but I wouldn't be surprised if he only goes over by just a couple of points. Moving on now to the next comment. This one comes from Zach Goddard, who says John Gibson over or under 919 save percentage. I'll say under, but slightly. Gibson fan here, but he's not joining a team that's way better. If it was a team like Carolina, then I'd say over. As much as I want to be optimistic about everything to do with the Red Wings heading into this season, I gotta go with the under here. When it comes to John Gibson, we haven't seen him finish a season with a save percentage north of .920 in over 7 years. And even though he is coming off of the best season he's had statistically in a while, albeit in a smaller sample size because his season was cut short due to injury, I still think expecting these kind of numbers from Gibson this season in his first year with the Red Wings is pretty unrealistic. Because like you said, it's not like he's going to a team like Carolina who is going to play elite defense in front of him night in and night out. If Gibson can just come close to putting up similar numbers to the ones he put up this past season, just in hopefully more starts, as a Red Wings fan, I'll be thrilled. Next up, this comment comes from Nfoot10, who says, Brandt Clarke over under 41.5 points. I'm definitely taking the over here. I feel like Brandt Clarke has the potential to be one of the best offensive defensemen in the entire NHL. This past season, he was still able to put up 33 points for the LA Kings, despite the fact that he averaged less than 16.5 minutes of ice time per game, and after losing Vladislav Gavrikov in free agency and trading Jordan Spence to Ottawa, and Drew Doughty's not getting any younger, I feel like the Kings are quickly going to realize that Brandt Clarke is somebody that they're going to have to rely on a ton this season. I imagine we see a significant jump in his minutes. I wouldn't be surprised if he averages, north of 21 minutes a night for the Kings this season, and Brandt Clarke's the kind of defenseman where if he gets the minutes, he's going to produce. I feel like a 50 to 55 point season is very achievable for him, so give me the over here. And now finally, finishing up this episode of NHL Over or Under with another LA Kings comment. This one comes from Brando, who says, Andrei Kuzmenko, 60 points. And this may be a bit of a bolder one, but I'm actually going to take the over here. Andrei Kuzmenko fit like a glove in LA after being traded from Philly at the deadline this past season. He finished with 17 points in 22 regular season games for the Kings, and he was also a point per game for them in the postseason. Pretty much every time throughout Kuzmenko's career so far that he's gotten consistent top 6 minutes, he has been a really good offensive contributor. The times he has really struggled is when he's been asked to play in more of a middle 6 or bottom 6 role with less talented forwards. He's a player who's not really suited for that kind of role. He is a run and gun, high octane offensive winger, and that's why I think he did so well in LA, because they played him on the first line with a guy like Kempe, who's also very good in transition and creating offense off the rush. They also used him on the first power play unit where he did well. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, so I imagine he finds himself in a similar role with the Kings this season. And if he stays healthy, I think 60 points is very achievable, so that's why I'm going with the over here. I mean, this is a guy who's not all that far removed from a 39-goal, 70-plus point season. So that is going to wrap up today's episode of NHL Over or Under. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you want to see another one of these before the season starts, then be sure to leave the video a like. It's the best way to let me know that you enjoyed, and it does help out the videos a ton. And most importantly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this all year round, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you all again soon.